Hi, I'm Steve Adelman, and welcome to Adelman on Venues. Today I'm speaking to you from my backyard in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona, for a couple of reasons. One, it's just really nice out. It's less than 1,000 degrees for the first time in months, and also because I'm just glad to be home. This past week, I had two conferences. First at the International Festivals and Events Conference in San Diego, and then immediately thereafter at an American Bar Association Entertainment and Sports Law Conference. So I'm just glad to be home. And that gives me an opportunity to finally talk about something that happened to me 2 weekends ago, which I really wanted to talk about because it's frankly so important, and it has come up several times recently, which is how do you cancel an event and what constitutes a successful cancellation? So I'm happy to report that I was involved in what I think is a good one. This is very timely because in September, first there was the canceled Curveball Festival in upstate New York, and then the nearly entirely canceled Pilgrimage Festival in Tennessee. So I was embedded at the Bourbon and Beyond Festival in Louisville, and although the promoter that I was involved with wound up canceling the second of the 2 days of that festival, as well as a 3-day festival that was scheduled to take place on the same property the following weekend. I think so much was done well. So many things were done right, both in the planning process and in the decision-making leading up to the cancellation of part of the events that frankly, I think there's a lot of teachable moments. So what I'm going to do is show you some pictures and then from that unspool the story. So let me show you some pictures. Here we go. And yes, so this is the beautiful stage, the 2-stage setup for the Bourbon and Beyond Festival in Louisville. And you can see that during the setup process, the weather was gorgeous. It's a beautiful park. The grass was fantastic. Everything was in great condition. The stage was terrific. The music itself was just clear. Everything was set up well. There were law enforcement people with dogs to sniff out the prohibited items that were reasonably foreseeable, so that was done well. In addition, there was private security that had walk-through magnetometers and hand wands, so that was the belt and suspenders approach that I always suggest to my clients that they do, because, well, as you can see from these two excellent young men, sometimes the security guards are not really the best and brightest. Here we have kind of our local variation on Beavis and Butthead, but they had enough technology so that prohibited items were not a problem on this festival site. There was also a well-staffed medical tent, so the event medical people knew what were the reasonably foreseeable medical issues, and they were fully prepared. We were also prepared for the reasonably foreseeable weather. We'd been told by the local people in Louisville that September was the driest month of the whole year, and we had nothing to worry about. Nonetheless, belt and suspenders again, we had cornered the market on the city's supply of mulch. So there was that. We had a terrific RV camping area set out on soccer fields adjacent to the festival grounds themselves. And you can see they were immaculate. The fields were great. The grass was perfect, as was the festival site. So you can see that people started to show up early. The barricade was perfectly arranged. Really, everything had been done well. All of it was consistent with the planning that had been done for the event. For months in advance, there were emergency plans being created that eventually were put into a terrific booklet that had maps and emergency numbers, prohibited items lists. All of the plans that had been created were embodied in this one easy-to-use guide. And so really everything was set up well. This was an event that had been well thought out. And so all of the plans, I thought, were excellent. Safety, security, all of the arrangements, the guest services, communication plans, everything was well laid out. And so the event then proceeds, and it starts out on Saturday. The artists perform. This is the only artist that I saw. And the show began. Now, the weather was not good. On Saturday, it rained all day. It rained hard all day. People came prepared, but nonetheless, the site could not keep up. And so even you can see here that the site was turning to mud during the daylight hours. As night fell, it got worse and worse. The crowd stuck around. We got in the whole show for that Saturday. But at the end, when people left, they were ready to go and they left all their stuff. It was like a scene out of Woodstock. And even this picture is misleading because it looks like there's still grass. But if you look a little further into the background of this image, you can see that it's mud. So that's what we saw. And we knew what the forecast was, which was for more rain. And this was a low-lying site, so we knew that more rain was going to be trouble. And sure enough, it was. This was the next morning. Yes, that is what the site looked like the next morning. No more hardy blades of grass at all. The site was completely underwater. It was underwater everywhere. Everywhere on the entire festival site was completely underwater, even immersing yours truly. And so there was water throughout the site and rain in the forecast. The campground was just mud. Vehicles were stuck. They had to be pushed out with recovery team backhoes from the city of Louisville, and a very useful bobcat helped to pull out some vehicles that couldn't be pushed. So all of that happened. And during the course of the late night hours between Saturday night and Sunday morning, ultimately the decision was made to cancel Sunday because the site was not going to recover. As you see, it did not. And so that decision was made. What I want to talk about, so that was all the wind up. Here's the pitch. What I want to talk about is the 4 issues that mattered the most to making this what I believe was a successful cancellation. So the 4 issues that mattered were relationships, accurate information, communication with patrons and with other stakeholders, and then finally, preserving the reputation of the promoter in order to live to fight another day. So that's what I'm going to talk about now. And I will take the screen back so you can see my fabulous face and my beautiful backyard. And here we go. So the 4 issues: relationships. So the promoter had a great relationship with the city of Louisville. The mayor's office was in constant communication. They sent their head of Parks and Recreation to the site. He was there as much as anybody from the promoter, wearing his rubber boots, and he was walking around the muck as much as anyone. Communication with the city was fantastic, which was really important when came time to decide, are we going to cancel Sunday's show? Because if the city got in front of it, that would in turn kick in the insurance coverage, which is exactly what happened. And so in the wee small hours of Sunday morning between Saturday's set and Sunday's scheduled set, the city made the decision to cancel the show on Sunday because the property, their parkland, simply could not handle it. The pumps were not going to pump out the water that was anticipated. There was a forecast of 5 inches scheduled over 48 hours. The site was already, as you saw, just flooded and was going to stay flooded. So the city got in front of that, and the relationship with the city was great because that in turn allowed us to invoke the insurance coverage. So when the decision by the promoter was announced that Sunday was canceled, at the same time they were able to also announce the ticket refund policy. And so fans understood, you can't fight the weather, but they also appreciated knowing what their status was at the same time that decision was made. The relationship with the mayor's office was important, with the city, with the insurer. One of the insurance reps was right there in the production trailer with us, helping with the analysis, which was really helpful. And finally, the relationship with the patrons, because they were kept in constant contact with us so that as we pushed out messaging, they got it. And they knew that we were doing our best. We were working the problem, but some problems are insurmountable. So relationships, number 1. Number 2, accurate information. Well, you've heard me say before that, your cell phone is not a meteorological prediction tool, not when you have a house full of people. And for this festival, they did the right thing. They had private meteorological consulting. We were talking to them every hour. We knew that the forecast was for more rain, for more heavy rain. Thankfully, lightning wasn't much of a problem, but rainfall was. There simply was not going to be an opportunity to pump out the site. And so we knew, because we had good information that was accurate, that the conditions were going to get bad and stay bad for a long time. Communications. Because we had accurate information going in, we were able to push communications out to patrons. And so we were able to tell them, here's what the forecast is, here are the limitations to the site, and here are the consequences for you, ticket holding customers. And again, that's what builds trust. That's what allows you to make a decision and not have things blow up on you. And so this promoter did a great job of pushing messaging out to social media, not just fun pictures of the show on Saturday, although they certainly did that too, but also information about what the status was for Sunday, what the ticket status was, and also what was likely to happen for the following weekend, which was scheduled to be held on the same site. So all of this was part of the communications plan. There were people that the promoter had designated to handle those issues, and they were handled beautifully. Finally, the fourth issue, reputation. In the production trailer, we had a number of conversations. The promoter obviously really wanted to carry on, to do Sunday's show, and certainly not to cancel the 3-day festival that was scheduled for the same property the next weekend. That's a really hard decision to make. And he deliberated long and hard, getting input from all the people who knew things, who had actual information. And ultimately, he made an educated and well-informed decision that the show simply could not go on. It couldn't go on consistent with health and safety considerations. And so the question was, what will cause the least reputational damage? Canceling an event early when people can do something about it, or holding them until the last minute and then probably canceling. And he made the difficult decision to cancel early so that people could respond, get their refunds, change their plans. And so on Sunday, the day when people were getting their RVs pushed out of the campground with backhoes and bobcats, I was walking around in the mud talking to people because I didn't have anything else to do at that point. And the conversation that I had over and over again was, we had a great time on Saturday. Saturday's set was fantastic. And we understand with all this rain coming down, nothing you can do. The site was mud. Everybody could see that. And so people said, we loved Saturday. We understand you're doing your best. You've been communicating with us all along. They could see that I was out there walking around in the mud. And they said, this all went as well as it could. We're going to come back next year. And that's the key, to live to fight another day. And so this promoter had to cancel Sunday, had to cancel the 3-day festival schedule for the next weekend. But even so, it all went so well because there wasn't significant financial damage. There wasn't any, I believe, reputational damage. And so all the plans that had been set forth well in advance by smart people thinking through all of the options, all the eventualities, those mostly worked, but you can't plan everything. There's an old line from a 19th century Prussian general, no plan survives contact with the enemy. And that was true in this case too. And so the plans were great as they were, but they simply allowed the organizers, the promoter, to deviate, to make good decisions based on circumstances as they turned out to happen. And in this instance, the rain just overwhelmed the ability of the site to absorb water. Decisions were made based on the plans. And then at the end, we could go back to the plan, see what are we supposed to do, how did we do, and the promoter survives. It's very difficult to cancel a show. No one wants to do that. But in this case, I believe the cancellation was done extremely well because everyone used good information, they communicated, they worked together in partnership, and that's why I believe that this event in Louisville was a successful cancellation. So that's the lesson for this week. Hope that you find that useful and that you won't need to use it yourself, but chances are, because there are so many events that are outdoors or in difficult circumstances, you might. So I'm Steve Adelman. That's been Adelman on Venues. Thanks.